Hello there, my name is Rob Adamski. I'm the wildlife vet here at New England Wildlife Center. Today we're going to talk about our native turtle species, some of the threats they're experiencing, and what you guys can do to help. Alright, first thing is we have about 10 native species of turtles here in Massachusetts, and we also have one really prevalent invasive species as well, which is the red-eared slider. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the common threats we see to our native turtle species, and the most prevalent to those are habitat loss. Unfortunately, a lot of the natural habitat that these turtles once lived in has now become shopping malls, people's housing developments, highways, etc., etc. And all that's been pretty devastating to the turtle populations. Some of the other threats we see are collection for the pet trade, the black market pet trade, and as well as threats from increased predation by predators such as raccoons and other animals which eat the hatchlings and also eat the eggs as well. So those are some of the common threats we see with our native turtle species. Now, one of the big threats we see is the fact that a lot of our turtles, every spring and summer, when the turtles are out trying to do their natural mating behavior, they end up getting hit by cars. That's a huge problem, and we see a lot of fatalities and a lot of severe injuries from vehicle accidents or vehicle strikes. And the reason why is because a lot of these turtles are out, either the females are out looking for good habitat to lay their eggs, and the males are out looking for mates. Now the problem is, because of urbanization, development of roads, development of housing development, shopping centers, stuff like that, a lot of this once pristine habitat, either marshland, forest, etc., has all been fragmented. And so now these same turtles that once were able to move from point A to point B safely now have to cross a lot of roads to do it. So all we ask is that you guys out there in Massachusetts and the rest of New England keep an eye out for turtles on the roads, okay, especially early in the morning and later on at night, all right, and try to avoid them. So if you're driving in areas that are forested, swampy areas, especially out in semi-rural or rural areas, please slow down, take a look for turtles, and try to avoid them. Now, the question often people ask is, what do you do if you actually get a turtle? So what we recommend is that you actually slow down, stop, obviously make sure you're safe first, okay? Pull off to the side of the road, make sure you don't get hit. Then what you want to do is you want to move the turtle to the side that they're going to, okay? Don't put them back on the side they're walking away from, because then they got to recross the road again. So if they're pointing in one direction, put them on the road facing that direction, right? Because the turtles have a predilection for going back and laying eggs and finding mates in the same area that they've been doing for generations. All right, so that's what you do if you find a turtle and on the road. Now, the one exception to that would be a snapping turtle. Okay, snapping turtles can be dangerous. All right, you do need to be careful, and we usually recommend either you don't touch those guys, don't try to pick them up, or if you have to, use an object to scoop them up into a box, use a broom, something like that, so you're not actually touching them directly, because they can actually pretty severely injure you. All right? Okay, now the reason why this is so important is because this is what happens if the turtles do get hit by cars. So what we have here is one of our native turtle species, okay? And this is a painted turtle. All right. Now, unfortunately, this is a male painted turtle, and this guy actually was hit by a car. And I'm going to spin him around for you, but you can see all this apparatus that's attached to him now. And the reason why that has been done is we've had to use a lot of surgical techniques to try to piece his shell back together. We actually had some pretty severe shell fractures that we had to fix. All right. Now you can see what appear to be brackets, plastic brackets, and zip ties and everything else attached to him. And I'm going to show you one on his side that you can actually see really well. And what we had was, so this turtle actually had a shell fracture that damaged what we call his bridge area, or the connector bit between the top and the bottom of his shell. The top's called the carapace and the bottom's called the plastron, and he actually had a shell fracture there as well. And what we're doing is we're showing you the actual shell fracture, which is located right here where the cursor is. And you can see it actually extends all the way at the edge of the shell, goes up here, and then actually part of it is fractured that way and part of it is fractured that way, so it's kind of Y-shaped. And that's a pretty significant fracture to the carapace, or to the top part of this turtle's shell. And not only is that painful and can cause problems such as bleeding and that, because it's essentially as if you have a broken bone. We also have problems with turtles because there's a lot of underlying structures anatomically that can cause problems. So for instance, if you get a fracture that actually crosses the midline in a shell, the turtles can actually have spinal cord fractures because their spine is actually fused to the underside of the shell. Other problems we commonly see are pelvic fractures. You can see here, right where the cursor is, that's the turtle's pelvis. And if we have a fracture across the back third of the shell, we often see pelvic fractures as well, because those bones are actually attached to the shell as well. Now, fortunately for this guy, even though he does have fractures back here, his pelvis seems to be intact and he can use all of his legs. Okay? But just to tell you that these are some of the problems we see with shell fractures in turtles and why it's such a big deal. Okay, so let me show you some of the materials we use to actually fix these guys. So what we have here is some common epoxy and brackets, okay? And with this we would have zip ties, okay? And these are the simple materials we use to actually piece together the turtle shells. And what we found, this is a good way to immobilize and splint the shells, and therefore they'll heal. And it's also a nice, easy way. We used to use some other methods previously, like epoxy, and actually seal the shell, but we found that actually sealed in infections and caused secondary problems. So this is a nice, easy way to fix the turtle shells. Now the problem is, though, and the reason why this is such a big deal, reptiles do everything slowly. Their metabolism is much slower than mammals and birds. So as a result, they heal slowly too. So it takes 4 to 6 months for these turtles to actually heal their shells on a regular basis, okay? Now, it would take a mammal or a bird, most likely in normal circumstances, 4 to 6 weeks to heal a bone. And remember, because the turtle shell is bone tissue, okay? So it's like you breaking your arm or your leg. But for these guys, it takes 4 to 6 months to heal, which is a really long convalescent time, and involves a lot of hard work, effort, time, resources, and money on our staff and our volunteers and our interns to try to heal these guys and get them back out into the wild again. So that's why, ideally, we wouldn't hit these guys with our cars in the first place, and that'll resolve this whole problem, okay? One final thing I want to show you is we have our turtle pond here at New England Wildlife Center. And we use this as an educational tool to teach people about native and invasive species of turtles here in Massachusetts. And I'm going to show you now one of our invasive turtle species that has caused a lot of problems here in Massachusetts. What we have here is a red-eared slider. Okay. This is an invasive species here in Massachusetts, and the reason why it's such a big deal is that a lot of these turtles have either been purposefully or accidentally released into the wild that were originally pets. Now, the reason why this is such a huge problem is that these turtles end up damaging or threatening a lot of our native turtle species. And for several reasons. One is they're aggressive, okay, so they can often outcompete the native turtle species for food, shelter, habitat, etc. The other reason is these guys can often bring disease and parasites that our native turtle species are susceptible to, and often will kill them or make them seriously ill. Okay? So what I would recommend, and New England Wildlife Center recommends, is that please, if you have a problem, you're not able to take care of a red-eared slider as a pet anymore, okay, please do not release it back into the wild, okay? Not only is it illegal, but you're ending up hurting a lot of our native wildlife, okay? So please, there's options out there. If you're not able to take care of a red-eared slider as a pet, is to contact the SPCA, Animal Rescue League. There's also reptile rescue agencies. You can contact people through the New England Herpetological Society that will often be able to rehome your pet, okay? All right, thank you very much. Now, to give you some kind of idea as to the magnitude of the problems that are currently facing our native turtle species, two interesting facts. The first is that out of our 10 native turtle species, 6 of those are actually they actually have a protected status or a listed status, which means they're a species of special concern, they're threatened, or they're actually endangered, which means all of them are not doing well in the wild. All right. The second thing is the latest studies have shown, to tell you the magnitude of the problem with car strikes affecting our native turtle species populations, is that they estimate 10 to 20% of our native turtle populations end up getting killed by cars every year. So that's 10 to 20% of our turtle species are killed every year, and for a slowly reproducing species such as turtles, that's a huge problem. All right, thank you.